Hello, hello. Hi, everyone. Whoever has signed in, Olu Bendi, I see you guys signing on. Thank you so much for joining us. Apologies, we're 2 minutes behind schedule on the start time. Just want to make sure that our tech was well situated before we went live. So thank you for tuning in. I'll just give a minute or two to allow more as many more as possible to tune in before we start today's session. I hope all you guys are doing well, feeling well, in good health, feeling optimistic about your tomorrow. I truly pray that and hope that for you guys. Exciting times to be alive. And I thank you again for tuning in. In case you don't know who I am, my name is Solomon Wangwe, Managing Director, Founder of Goshen Acquisitions Limited and its wholly owned subsidiary, Grand Acres Limited. And just for clarity, because we get asked from time to time, what's the difference between Grand Acres and Goshen Acquisitions? Grand Acres was initially a registered trademark of Goshen Acquisitions Limited, which is a limited liability company. Okay. Much later on, we also registered Grand Acres as a limited liability company, fully owned as a subsidiary of Goshen Acquisitions. So Grand Acres is both a registered trademark as well as a subsidiary of Goshen Acquisitions. And so, in essence, we are one and the same. Grand Acres is our customer facing brand, while Goshen Acquisitions is the corporate brand behind everything we do as Grand Acres. I hope that clarifies that. For those of you who might have been wondering, just wanted to kill that one right away. And again, thank you so much, April, Alpha, Fidi, Mugo. I see you guys tuning in. In case you can and don't mind to, please tell us where you are watching from. What grand place on this planet are you while you're tuning in? It would be awesome for us to know, um, and we can address things with that perspective in mind. Cool. So let's get started. Again, this week we're gonna make it an open Q&A session. I'm not gonna waste too much time yapping about whatever you think it is that I think you want to hear. I would rather respond to your questions, things that are top of your mind, maybe things you're going through or dealing with, just so that this session is meaningful for you. And I promise you, if I don't know the answer, I will be honest enough to tell you that I don't know, and I also promise to find you the right resource for your answer. But so far, so good. We haven't been stumped by any of your questions. So feel free. Let's have good conversation. Invite your friends, family, only the ones that you like, please. Okay, we only want good vibes. Anyone that you know is keen about safe land investment in Kenya, please share them the invite to this live session so that they can tune in and maybe ask some of their questions. Jerry James from Doha, Qatar, awesome. Thank you for tuning in. Nyambura, Perpetua, Ian, Alan, I see you guys. Olubendi, tunakuona, asante. And we see your question. I'll address that. Ahadi Group, love you guys. Thank you for tuning in as always. I hope you're doing well wherever you're at in the US. I know where all of you guys are, kind of, sort of, because you guys are all over the place. Zeddy, I see you. Gloria, Gaki, Nevs, Petrine, Nancy Kinoti, Shelley Barlow. Thank you all for tuning in. Okay, so I'm just gonna get started on the questions. Bible relaxation, Karibu. I see your comment right there. So first question, I guess I can tackle is, where is that? Okay, here we go. From news on Instagram. I'm a young guy. I want to invest in real estate just to hold the land for like 5 years for profit purposes only. Is it good? Is it a good idea? And is 5 years a long time or a long enough time to realize profit? That's an awesome question. News on Instagram. How young is young? If you don't mind dating yourself, that would be helpful. It'll give me context on exactly how to answer your question as relates to the 5 years. Um, so, just to paraphrase, your question is about you want to invest for speculative purposes to realize capital gains in or about 5 years' time. Uh, that's a great way to go about real estate, by the way, guys. I know there's a lot of negative connotations around speculative investment. Personally, I hate the term speculation because it gives the idea of guesswork, at least in the context that I learned English here in Kenya. To speculate means to guess or uh, try and figure out, which doesn't sound like a sure way to go about things. But in the context of real estate, speculative investment has to do with non-specific purpose buying. So you're buying land for its own merits just because it's land. It's a fixed, immovable, safe asset that holds value for the long term, survives succession, meaning you can leave the asset to those who survive your death, um, and generally grows in value in a very passive way over time, not knowing exactly what you're going to do with it, whether build or subdivide or farm or whatever. That's what speculative investment is about. And that's a great way to engage with real estate. So, in a quick answer to your question, news on Instagram, um, it's an excellent idea. Do it quickly. I wish I started in my 20s. Unfortunately, I was 33 by the time I was buying my first piece of land in Kenya, believe it or not. I was living in the US for 11 years before then. Maybe slightly, yeah, about 11 years. I came back home. How old was I when I came back home? I was 31. And then it took me about 2 years after settling back home before I got serious about owning land back home in Kenya. So I lost a lot of time outside of the country, and I wasn't in the frame of mind back there to think about investing back home. I was on survival mode. Um, I've told my story before about how I ended up in the States to study, how I had to drop out of college and had to figure out a way to survive, maybe try and get back to school. And before I knew it, 11 years had gone before I came back home. And so for that reason, I started my investment journey late. I'm 44 years old today. So I've been doing this for 11 years now, which is uh, which is not bad. And I you will be amazed at what sorts of changes and gains we have seen over that relatively short period of time. 11 years is not very long in the larger context of life. So you can imagine where I would be. These are the thoughts I think uh, if I had started at 21, for instance, or 22. I mean, time is the biggest premium. It's your biggest asset. It's your biggest currency when you're young. Take advantage. So do it now, especially if you're going to be speculative about it. Don't waste time. It's a great idea. 5 years is long enough depending on the location, right? So the more frontier the place is, and the longer it takes for any development to happen in the area, the longer you will have to hold that asset to realize meaningful gains for capital gains when you sell, because you want to do it for profit purposes only, right? And it's good that you're clear about that. So try and be strategic about where you do this so that you have a shorter time period guarantee for viability to sell for profit. So find fast growing areas that are heavily or densely populated and growing quick, where there's huge demand for space and amenities for people to live, work, play, and that sort of thing. And 5 years will be plenty time. Okay, so happy investing to you. I'll tackle the next question. Okay, next question is from Brian Mandela. I actually saw your question yesterday, Brian. Thank you for being proactive about sending your questions on YouTube. And your question is, if you had two options, one, a 50 by 100 plot, that's an eighth of an acre, a 50 by 100 plot in a prime location such as Milimani, Kitengela, or two, an acre in a futuristic potential location of like 25 kilometers from the main road in Kitengela. I guess that's Kitengela, right? Yeah, assuming the two projects cost the same amount of, say, 2 million shillings, which one would you prefer if you're looking at making a profit after 5 years? Wow. Okay. I, honestly, same thing I just said to news on Instagram. Okay, 50 by 100 plot in a prime location such as Milimani, definitely a solid bet. Okay, because that's a fast growing area. It's already well settled. There's growing demand for space there, which means there'll be pressure on prices over time. Is 5 years long enough to allow it to have or realize greater gains than the 1 acre? That's 25 kilometers. I would say yes. 25 kilometers is a long way away from Kitengela or all the activity near the road. And by road, I mean the main access artery in Kitengela, right? 25 kilometers is deep. If I were you, I would limit myself to 10 kilometers um, and no further than that. If you have to go that far deep inside, no more than 10 kilometers. If you can, try limit yourself to 5 kilometers. In that case, then you're more at par in terms of value appreciation, potential value appreciation with a 50 by 100 in Milimani, right? Because in Milimani, you're going to have a plateauing of value as the place gets more settled and everyone's built and there's no more land. The price of land will plateau for a bit before it shoots up again. In that same period of time, your 1 acre, which will produce 750 by 100s in 5 years, may very well allow you to generate much bigger capital gains. Okay, so again, in that instance, it depends on how far. But strictly with regards to your question, my pick would be the 50 by 100 in Milimani, because I can also build on it and flog it or flip the building I have built in 5 years and still make a good profit. Okay, hope that helps. That's an awesome question. Next question. Okay, we have a question from Olubendi on IG. Biggest question is, are there banks you work with that someone outside Kenya can borrow to buy land? Answer to your first question, of course, yes, there are banks that we work with. We have been doing this for 11 years, so we've kissed a few frogs to find our princesses, as it were. To be honest, Olubendi, not very many banks are friendly towards land purchase lending. Right? Banks tend to shy away from taking a risk on land unless your purchase for the land includes borrowing for construction of a house, which will become part of the asset that they are holding as security for the loan that you're taking. They would much rather loan you money for the land if you're adding more value to it so that it's more bankable and a better form of security for them. If it's just for raw land, banks tend to be thumbs down. Okay, I would not recommend it for two main reasons. First of all, they will take a very poor view on the value. Banks will have to assume that you're going to default. And if you default and they have to auction the property, what is the hard sale value? Hard sale value is the value that they determine they can sell quickly to the market without having to wait too long, and it'll be snapped up to recover their funds that they lent to you. Generally speaking, that means that their own valuation, because they have to work with their own valuers who understand the assignment, okay, the valuation will generally be lower than you might get if you were selling the property yourself. I hope that makes sense. So you're going to get a generally lower value. So let's say the property is worth $1 million bobs. The bank's valuation might come in at a hard sale value of, say, 800,000 shillings. So you're losing 200,000 shillings in equity there. On top of that, they will generally limit the loan to value ratio to 50 to 60%. The most generous ones might do 70% if it's in Kilimani or Westlands or one of those sorts of places, right? But if you're not in one of those bankable, heavily commercial, settlement viable places, you're looking at maximum 60% loan to value. In this case, you're looking at 480K of the 800,000 shillings valuation. That's the most that they will lend you. Is that a good deal? I don't think so. It might help you reduce cash out of pocket to buy if you're going to put in the balance yourself to purchase. But for that reason, we don't work with banks in that regard because our customers mostly will buy land first. And so therefore, none of our bankers will be suitable partners for our customers in that sense. We are trying to make some changes internally in our product offering in the sense that we can sell more bankable properties, so properties that are located in areas that the banks are sure are viable commercially, have good value retention, and can be settled fairly easily. And this is one of the main reasons we started doing professional master plans for our products, our sites, and horizontal infrastructure provision, because then you make a place out there in the middle of nowhere all of a sudden be as bankable as, say, Milimani in Kitengela or even Westlands, depending on how much value addition you're putting into the ground. Okay, so this is a question that the whole industry in Kenya is trying to address: how to increase access to credit for customers looking to buy land. And so once we have figured that out, we will be sure to tell you which banking partner are the best to work with. Okay, so I hope that helps. Thank you for that question. Next one from Kilonzo on IG. Please give the process one is going to undertake in buying residential land and building commercial houses on it. Residential land and building commercial houses on it. Give process from what one does from step one in buying land to last step when I build. Okay, so first question for me, Kilonzo, is why on earth would you want to build commercial houses on residential land? Okay, unless I misunderstand your question, you are looking for land in the wrong place. Because if the place is already residential, chances are it's going to be very difficult for you to get approvals to change the zoning from residential to commercial, unless you're right on a highway. Okay, and even then, you may have resistance from the residential community when you have to engage the community for stakeholder engagement. It's one of the requirements for change of use when you're trying to apply for rezoning. You have to advertise your intention publicly in plain view of everyone in the community. You are also required to publish a gazette ad in one of the main dailies. Okay, and this is for the sole purpose of allowing members of the public who have a stake in that area to make comments, to object, to approve, or give a thumbs up for the county authorities to review when they're making a decision about whether or not to grant your application for change of use from residential to commercial. Okay, so if you're already in a residential area, you're increasing your barriers to entry. So maybe look for something in a commercial zone. That's the first thing I would say. And the process for what one has to take from changing use, it's very long. It's not something I will go through on this live session because I'll probably get halfway by the time we're out of time. So, Kilonzo, if it's okay with you, please DM, and I can address that with you specifically in as much detail as is required because we do have experience with change of use. We've done that for our project in Nanyuki called Acacia Cove, where we had to change use from agricultural to residential. And we've done the same in Naivasha, where we've had to change use from agricultural to commercial as well as residential, mixed use development, commercial on the highway, residential in the back. And what you're seeing on the screen is a small ad that we did for our Acacia Cove compound, which is still on sale, by the way, where I think we're about 70% sold. There's only about 20 plots remaining. So if that's something that's up your alley or know someone who's keen on buying quality pieces of land, don't just buy rubbish out there. Don't just buy land, buy value. Acacia Cove is one of those. And same thing with All Kekun in Naivasha, where we've had to go through change of use. We're going through change of use on our Elementaita compound as well, from freehold agricultural to leasehold residential. Why are we converting from freehold to leasehold? Because it would allow us to market or to sell our property to foreign nationals who are very keen on water frontages. So from a commercial perspective, it's better for us as a business to have leasehold titles to sell as opposed to freehold, which only Kenyan citizens can buy. Okay, so I'll be happy to address that in detail with you, Kilonzo. And that's a super question. Thank you. I'll go to another question. Kenyan tube kids. We just received heavy rains in Kenya. It is said this is the right time to visit sites and propose land or properties for sale. Is this true? Why not the dry season? Awesome question, Kenyan tube kids. So yes, it's the best idea is to visit the site in both extremes, dry and wet. So why is it important to visit the land when it's wet? Because you will know very quickly if you're going to have access issues because of flooding, if it's in a floodplain, if the roads are poor, if there's no all-weather maram or all-weather road surface access. You will not know that unless you're going in a wet season. And so it's a good idea to do so. And don't wait until it's so late in the wet season because by then it'll be super nice and green. It'll be luminous green, you know, what we imagine the Garden of Eden would look like. And a lot of people make permanent decisions over very temporary situations like how green a place looks after it rains, which is why I say the better idea is to look at the land even in the dry season if you have the opportunity to. This is one of the reasons, for example, we at Grand Acres, Goshen Acquisitions, any of our material when we're presenting a site, in our brochures, in our videos, we never use stock images ever. We pay a photographer good money to actually go to the site and represent the site in its actual state, dry or wet. We did this in Imbuko last year in the worst of dry seasons. We had a lot of negative comments about why we're selling desert. That was from the naysayers. Never mind that we sold out in less than 3 months. A lot of people appreciated the beauty there and understood that it's an exceptionally dry season, not just in Kenya, but for the whole region. But that's a great time to look at land so that you have an idea what it looks like at its worst, okay? So you want to have a view of both extremes. If I had to pick one, I'd go with the wet season because that is more material to your ability to access a land during the wet season. If there's seasonal rivers that cross the road in the wet season that you can't access, meaning you can't come back home after heavy rains or leave your house if it's rained at night, that's a problem, okay? You might want to make sure that the seller of the land sorts that out, if at all possible, before you buy the land, or at least be mentally prepared to incur the extra cost to sort out your accessibility. So I hope that helps. It gives you a good idea. You guys are asking awesome questions today, by the way. I can tell you guys are serious to land buying people. So keep them coming. April from April Alpha on IG. Your question is, what part of the country would be okay for doing ranching? And by that you mean livestock keeping. Um, there are many parts of the country that are great for livestock ranching. Okay. Immediate one for me in mind, because I've interacted with this space for 10 years now, is Nanyuki in Laikipia. Most of Laikipia in general is excellent for livestock ranching. It's what a lot of the large landowners, including the foreign settler farmers, called the white settler farmers. That's a traditional term for that demographic of landowners in Laikipia, which I hate, by the way. It's a bit racist. We need to find a different way to address them. But settler farmers in like places like Laikipia, a lot of them do livestock ranching. Why? Because of the wide open plateaus. You have a lot of uh, available savanna landscape space, which is great for growing hay and grasses for feeding the livestock. It's easier to manage the livestock. The weather conditions are amazingly good for livestock, whether it's cows, goats, sheep, camel, even pig farmers. A lot of them are preferring places like Nanyuki or different parts of Laikipia County because of the good climatic conditions. Another great area, obviously, for livestock keeping is Kajiado County. Uh, there's a reason why the Maasai is settled in these zones, because this is their cultural practice. So you might also want to take cues from those communities that actually keep livestock. There are ancient reasons why they settled in those places that are conducive to their cultural norms. So places like Kajiado fit the bill. Places like Taveta are also great for that. I actually spent a weekend 3 years ago during COVID, I think it was. I spent a whole weekend with a livestock rancher in Taveta who was buying cattle from, we call them Wariahes or the Warriors here in Kenya, who are the predominant cattle farmers from northern Kenya coming down to the southern part of Kenya. And he was looking to buy cattle for his farm in Taveta. And I was amazed at how much cattle runs wild and free, even within the Tsavo National Park, because the national park has arrangements to allow the herdsmen to feed their livestock on the wild bushes and greenery and vegetation that's available on all that land. So obviously that's a great place for doing livestock ranching if you can secure space there. I'm sure there's other zones. A great resource for you. I would recommend Ministry of Agriculture. Look them up, give them a call. Calro are a great resource to give you data on what zones are most suitable for what specific kinds of livestock as well. And you'll be off to a good start. Awesome question. Next one from Matt. Hi. If your lawyer informs you that the land you put a deposit for has changes or charges, and the company selling it is still in the process of acquiring it from the owner, and it claims that they didn't come across the charges while doing the due diligence, then they claim they will sort it as soon as possible. Would you stick with them or would you pull out? I would run as far away as possible from that, Matt. That's a terrible scenario. For anyone to tell you that they did not come across a charge when doing their due diligence tells me two things, maybe more. I'll focus on two. First one, they did not do due diligence. Because if you did your due diligence, you would know if a title has been charged. A simple search will do that, coupled with a requisition of a certified copy of the green card would do that, okay? That means they have no clue what on earth they're doing, okay? You don't want to trust someone like that with your hard-earned capital. Why would you risk that? Second thing it tells me is that they might be dishonest because they knew about the charge and they did not disclose that to you. And if it's a problem for them now that's preventing them from transferring the ownership to you, I don't want to deal with that person, okay? So yes, pull out, go find someone else who has their stuff in order, has their house in order, and show some respect to your hard-earned capital. That's what I would say with all due respect, Matt. And in case you're wondering what are the steps you can take to avoid these sorts of scenarios, please go to our website, grandacres.co.ke. Look for our checklist. It's a Grand Acres land buying checklist, 9 steps to safe land buying in Kenya. You can register for a free copy. It'll be sent to you on email, or you can download it, whichever way they've set it up. It's a free resource based off of 12 years of experience doing this back home in Kenya. Uh, you can see that scrolling. It's detailed in notes. We try to make it brief because you could very easily turn it into a novel if you're if you're not careful. So very precise points on what to do. Step 1 all the way to 9. And I think in this case, Matt, I would say please hire a licensed advocate to help you. Don't take any chances. That's step number 6 on our checklist. Hire a licensed advocate of the High Court of Kenya, one who specializes in property law, what we call conveyancing, to help you do your due diligence. Because that also tells me that the land buying company maybe did not even work with a lawyer. No bueno. Take your money and run. Find someone else. Hope that helps. Next question. What's your fix with Lavinia and Chero? Your question is, or your comment says, hi, I recently attended a site visit with another land company, not you. I feel sad. You're welcome for a site visit with us. But you go on and say, why do land companies create panic around buying land? If I don't pay a deposit, I will miss out. Please explain. Fair question, Lavinia and Chero. Well, it's very simple. It's very simple. Sorry for those of you watching me on Instagram. The reason I'm leading so much on the left side of the screen is because I'm trying to read the comments on the screen. It's very simple. Land buying companies are motivated to sell. They want to sell yesterday. They want to sell now. They want you to pull out your checkbook and write them the check, or send the wire transfer and book the land with a deposit. So it's understandable why they would employ pressure mechanisms or strategies to sell. Rule of thumb for me is I never make decisions based on high pressure. Okay, if you're feeling rushed, take a step back and tell them you can engage them later, especially if you still need to do your due diligence. Now, if you're going to pay the deposit because you truly and honestly don't want to miss out on what seems to be a good deal to you based on your assessment of it, especially when you've gone for a site visit, nothing wrong with paying a deposit. Reserve the land that you want with a deposit on one condition, that unless that property has a ready title deed, you do not pay that seller directly. Pay your deposit to an advocate who has an escrow account and who will issue a professional undertaking that they will only release those monies once all the conditions of your sale or transfer transaction are fully met by the seller. They will hold it safely as a custodian on your behalf as well as the seller's behalf, and the seller will then recognize that you have shown good faith, okay, towards this purchase by parting with money, and it's being held by a custodian safely only if they issue a professional undertaking. Okay, and even if they have ready title deeds, you want to be sure everything else has checked out. So do your due diligence. Make sure your clauses, your sale agreement is professionally drafted to make sure that if the seller has misrepresented any warranties, there's a bunch of clauses on warranties about what needs to be proven to be true based on their marketing to you to make that decision to buy, that if they have breached any of those, you will get your money back without drama or incidents. Okay, I hope that's clear. Again, make sure you hire a licensed advocate. Don't try and do this on your own. If they have an advocate that you're willing to share, that's fine. Just make sure that you you are confident that that advocate is competent. But the truth of the matter is, they generally will have a conflict of interest. So make sure you interact with the advocate first. Don't just pick to work with the advocate without interacting with the advocate. Make your own assessment about the advocate's competence, the fact that they understand they have to look out for your back as well, instead of just the sellers, and make sure you work with them to hold your purchase deposit. Most especially if you're buying a property that does not yet have a title, which happens 80% of the time in our industry in Kenya. We do a lot of pre-sales. A lot of times land companies will sell land that they don't own themselves. They're selling someone else's land. Contractually, that's the agreement on the back end with the landowner, but you wouldn't know that. So it's very risky for you to pay deposits because of high pressure sales tactics without being sure what has been sorted out on the back end. Okay, so ask the right questions, download your free copy of the Grand Acres checklist, right? Land buying checklist, 9 steps to safe land buying in Kenya. It's absolutely free, guys. We don't charge for it. It's not rocket science. A standard 5 student can follow this on their own and do a clean transaction a million times without getting conned. Okay, it's not rocket science. It's just the information is not readily available out there. So we did our part, what we felt is our responsibility as responsible stakeholders in our beloved country and this industry, to empower you to buy safely. And anyone who is genuine about serving your needs will not have a problem whatsoever with you following the checklist. Whether you modify it to meet your specific needs is up to you, but get the checklist, follow it, step 1 to 9, very simple. You'll never have issues. You will flag the idiots who are out there trying to con you, and you'll also identify the solid players who are genuinely interested in serving your investment needs. I hope that helps. Okay, next question. Neyman Neymanacity on IG. Okay, your question is it possible to change leasehold to freehold within the project? Example, Acacia Cove. Awesome question. The answer is yes. We're actually doing this for one buyer, foreign national, who absolutely fell in love with Acacia Cove after their site visit. They decided they didn't care it was freehold, they want to own it. Unfortunately, the law is clear. Only Kenyan citizens can own freehold land. So what does that mean? We either tell them, no, we're sorry, we can't sell you the land, and lose out on the opportunity to serve this serious investor. Or we do the change of tenure, which is a very legal and easy process to follow. It has some cost implications over and above the land cost. Generally, it's cost us about 250,000 Kenya shillings to pay the licensed planner because you have to do the same thing as I described before. He has to put an ad in the dailies. He has to put a board up for the general neighborhood to be aware, to make any objections, to make any comments, whatever the case may be. And then he has to circulate that application to various stakeholders within the county and national government. And once they all issue letters of no objection, you are granted the permission to change from freehold to leasehold. And they provide new title documents for you to work with that foreign nationals can own without issue. And generally, because they are new leasehold, they will be up to 99 years renewable. Okay, so yes, it's possible to do that. No problem at all. Next question. Awesome questions today, guys. Thank you so much. And I hope someone's learning something or being helped by all of this. Okay, next question is from what's that? Pauji? Pauji. And your question is where? Sounds like a comment. Where? Let me tell you, Maina. I hear land, I quiver. When shall we digitize this land buying process? Do you know the timelines on this? Are you digital yourselves? Just came by your live. Thank you for that question, Paul G. Uh, yes, good reason to be cautious. Don't be afraid. Don't let the fear paralyze you and lock you out from the amazing opportunities available or inherent with land investment, especially in Kenya. Guys, Kenya, hands down, best land investment destination in the region, not just East Africa, even up to Central Africa. Many agree outside of South Africa, there's no better place to invest in land than Kenya for many good reasons. Our land laws, our land rights, property rights are fairly strong relative to everything else in the continent. It's why our real estate sector is so vibrant. It's why places like Westlands and Kilimani have been taken over by foreign nationals, whether it's the Chinese or the Ethiopian investors or the Somali community. The reason they are able to do that is because of our relatively strong property rights, despite all the problems. Okay, so don't let the okay many horror stories because there's one too many. I admit that. We polled our customers once. 60% of them had been conned more than once, or at least once, before we ever made contact with them. Scary statistic. We jokingly in the office say it's almost a rite of passage that you get conned once before you do a good deal in Kenya when you're new. So I understand the apprehension 100%, but don't let it paralyze you. Okay, it's it would be awesome if we figured out a way to digitize this process. Unfortunately, we are a long way from that. Even the ongoing digitization process at RD House with the RD Sasa initiative, in my humble opinion, is a farce. It's a joke. In fact, today it's more difficult to get a search done at RD House than it was before the RD Sasa initiative. Why? Because it's truly not digital. Scanning documents onto your database does not all of a sudden make the process digital. It just means you're not dealing with old files in the archives. You have made scans of documents. A truly digital land process is one such as those you will find in countries like Estonia, who have even gone ahead to blockchain that process to weed out any chance of foul play or distrustful actions by human beings along the way. We are a long way from there, unfortunately. It's a wait and see situation. Uh, Slow strides, I suppose. Um, and I know, like William is saying, that the whole digitization process had everyone excited. I was excited too. I'll be honest. I was elated because, in theory, it would shorten the transaction timeframes significantly. I think they talked about reducing conveyancing at RD House from something like 3 to 6 months all the way down to 3 weeks, in some cases up to 5 days. And that is exciting. Of course, it is. I mean, you increase the velocity of transactions, you unlock a lot of value for the economy, for the citizens of Kenya, and so on. Unfortunately, that has not been the case. In fact, as we speak, we are much worse off now than we were before that digitization process. So we're hoping and praying that the government finds the right way to approach this, because it's the only way we will sort things out. So it's a wait and see situation, unfortunately. But thank you for that question. Faith Wambui, thank you for that thumbs up. I'm glad that you're enjoying the content. Other question from Brian Mandela. Hi, Mr. Solomon. There is this road named the Greater Southeastern Bypass or the Greater Southern Bypass, plying Suswa, Isinya town through Kaputei to Konza Technopolis. Any wind on the progress? Yes, my team and I, and you'll see that on our socials at some point soon. Joji, if you can hear me in the other room, umeona hiyo memo. I guess we need to go live on that video. We actually spent quite a bit of time scouting for land down in Suswa and had the pleasant surprise of using that brand spanking new tarmac road which goes all the way from Suswa along Kedong all the way into Ngong. And of course, from Kiserian, you have the new pipeline road down to Namanga. The one that connects Kiserian or Kaputier to Isinya is not yet done, but it's in progress. Thankfully, that is a live situation. It wasn't a white elephant situation. It's taken longer than was initially planned, but it's underway and it's doing amazing things for opening up that part of the country. So that's as far as I can tell you. I have used a portion of it down in Suswa. Um, and same thing with the Greater Southeastern Bypass or the Greater Eastern Bypass as well. It's really shortened the travel time from say Village Market up to Tigoni Limuru, and also cutting across from Tigoni Limuru down to Kabete. I mean, you can be in Ruaka and use that road all the way down to Zen Garden and Westlands in less than 20 minutes. Amazing. So stay tuned. The government's doing its job, maybe slower than we don't like, but at least we have progress. Awesome question. Um, shall we take another? It's now 7:48. We have 12 minutes. I want to make sure I give everyone the opportunity to have a question answered at least. Kilonzo on IG, how many months does it take to get approval from county government and NEMA etc before starting construction of residential apartments? Awesome question, Kilonzo. So to get approval from county government, from the moment that you lodge your full and compliant application, meaning you have gotten all the documents you need in place, how long it takes you to do that is up to you. It has to do with your work ethic, how diligent you are about circulating to all the counterparties for letters of no objection. That can take anywhere from a week to 3 months to 6 months, or even 9 months, depending on which planner you're using, which licensed planner is doing that exercise for you. Why? Because county governments do not interact with private developers. They interact with licensed planners. So private developers, including yourself looking to build residential apartments, will have to engage a licensed planner to engage the county government and the county authority for that approval. So how long it takes them to do that depends on your work ethic, how well you prepare the planner, and how together they have their act. Now, assuming they have everything together, the Physical Land Use and Planning Act of 2019, which is the latest law that manages that process, stipulates that the county has 60 days from when you apply to issue you an approval or a denial. And if a denial with reasons, mostly reasons to mitigate as opposed to reasons to just say no, okay, they have 60 days. And if they don't respond to you within the 60 days, the law says that your application is automatically approved. By matter of law, the county authority absolutely loses any right to approve or disapprove at that point. The law has already said you're approved if they don't respond within the 60 days. Unfortunately, if they haven't responded, you're probably going to have a hard time getting them to issue you the compliance certificate that confirms your approval from the same office that has not responded. We've had that situation before ourselves in Laikipia, where we made an application. It was during COVID, so government shutdowns gave a legitimate reason for them to overshoot the 60 days because they're not in office, okay? One shutdown after the other led to a whole year without response. When we finally pressured them for a response, they gave flimsy reasons to say no that were actually, if you will, outside of policy. They made up reasons in essence. We then reapplied. The officer in that county got replaced. We reapplied, and they overshot the 60 days again. We then asked them to issue the compliance certificate, since the law, the constitution already says after 60 days, my application is automatically approved. They refused to issue the compliance certificate, and we were forced to go to court and sue the county to ask the court to force them to give us our compliance certificate. That process took another year and a half. So uh, this is why I'm giving you this long-winded answer, Kilonzo and IG. How long it takes will depend on very many factors. But the law says after your application is lodged, they get 60 days. Assuming the county plays ball, like we've experienced in Nakuru County, big up to the Nakuru County government, super efficient, at least for our projects within Nakuru County. 60 days, got our approval, no hassles, no problem. We were then able to process our title deeds and then also present our application to NEMA for approvals. It's important for me to note here that you have to get county approval before you can go to NEMA. You can't go to NEMA before you have the county government's approval. Okay, then NEMA requires that you sort it out county, then you come to them and they deal with the environmental issues on your design specs and how it might impact the environment and so on. And the NEMA situation will also depend on the scale of your project, okay, because depending on the scale of your project, you can lodge your application to the local county NEMA office. If it's larger than is specified, and at this point, you need to engage a professional environmentalist to help you with the NEMA process. You can't do it on your own unless you are an environmental specialist yourself, environmental planning specialist. If your project is beyond a certain threshold, you cannot deal with the county office. You have to deal with the headquarters in Nairobi, and they have different timeframes for that. So again, I sound like a broken record every time I say this. Please work with a licensed advocate, work with licensed surveyors, work with licensed planners, and get your stuff done right, and you'll avoid all the headaches and the inefficiencies. Okay? I hope that helps. And if you have any other specifics, DM, we can have a conversation tomorrow whenever it suits you, and we can be a bit more specific about your situation. Washu Ndirangu, hey Washu, thank you for tuning in. We consider Washu part of the team. She's one of our super loyal customers out in LA. Thank you so much for making time to join Washu. And your statement is, if you just bring that right back up, County, NEMA, Acacia Cove, here we come, Olkekun. Absolutely, Washu. We are in that process now. Stay tuned for awesome updates on Olkekun for you, Washu, and your lovely ladies, diaspora divas, on your purchase in Olkekun. Congratulations for making a super awesome decision. You'll be happy to hear more about that in the next week or so. Okay, so I hope that helps as far as NEMA and county is concerned. See if we can tackle one more question. We have 5 minutes left. Hadi Group, not relevant, but any upcoming diaspora tour? If yes, will you be physically there? Yes, Hadi Group, we're in the process of planning our Australia and US tours. We're not sure about the dates yet until we get our visas and all that jazz. As soon as we do, you will be amongst the first to know, even before we post. In a couple of weeks, we're hoping to be in Spain. And from Spain, we may visit Paris, France, and meet our Kenyan brothers and sisters back there who want to invest back home. So just stay tuned to our socials. We'll be very proactive about sharing well in advance so that you know where to catch us in the event that you have an opportunity to or would like to make time to do so. And yes, I am trying as hard as possible to be physically there myself for every single one. I feel so badly that I wasn't able to be there for the last one in LA and Atlanta, up in, I think it was San Francisco, where we sent our representative, in Texas, Dallas, in Houston, Oklahoma. I mean, we did a bunch of different places, but I wasn't able to be there physically this time. By God's grace, I will be, so stay tuned. and I look forward to it. Awesome. We have time for one more question. Brian Ngugi. Hello, Mr. Solomon. I was born in the UK to Kenyan parents. However, I am in the process of acquiring my Kenyan citizenship. I wanted to know if buying land through installments is open to us expats. 100% yes, Brian. Uh, Let us know which of our projects sort of tickles your fancy, that piques your interest. Let us know what's sort of makes sense for you. We do try as much as possible to accommodate all our customers within commercial constraints, because a lot of times the time frames for payments are determined by our requirements or obligations to lenders, investors, and the likes, a value addition cost, and so on. But yes, they are available, Brian. Reach out, DM. I'll be happy to engage with you directly and see if we can make something happen for you if you're keen on investing back home in Kenya. And karibu sana. Olubendi, thank you for loving our content. I think we have time for one more. Okay, own land in Hoima, Mr. Solomon. I have raised money as startup capital, planning to invest in residential plots by subdividing my big chunk of land. How many kilometers from town can I look for the piece of land? I mean, this is a very subjective question. It depends on what kind of residential compound you want to develop, right? If you want something that's off the beaten path, super private, difficult for everyone to get to because you want to be alone, away from the Ndudi noise and human activity noise, you might want to be as deep interior as you can manage. Okay, I mean, it depends. What are you trying to go for? What ambience, what mood, what vibe, what lifestyle are you trying to provide your residential property purchases? I think that will be the way to determine how far from the main road, how many kilometers you want to go, or how many kilometers from town you want to go to look for the piece of land. Your budget obviously will have a role to play on that, because if you have a finite amount of capital to spend on the land, you will automatically disqualify certain zones from consideration because they are way beyond your budget, and therefore you will be forced to look at specific parts that will have a say on how many kilometers from town. Okay, so assess the situation. Be clear about your goals. That is step number one on our checklist. If you haven't done so, send the link to a friend, anyone that you know who is serious about buying or owning land in Kenya. Download the free checklist, 9 steps to safe land buying in Kenya. Step number one says define your investment goal, because that will sort of set you up for the rest of your journey. If you're not clear about your goal, then you'll waste a lot of time looking at things you shouldn't be looking at, or even worse off, putting your money in the ground in a place that you might feel badly about later. So I hope that helps you all. Thank you so much for tuning in. So grateful for you making time to join this live session. We will try as much as it's within our control to make them regular every week on Thursday between 7 and 8 p.m. It's now 8 p.m. and because we respect time here at Goshen Acquisitions. Why? Because we like to say that time is money and money buys land. Okay, which is why we take time seriously. Time is money and money buys land. I would like to honor your time and say thank you for tuning in. If you have any questions, or maybe we missed one of your questions, we didn't address it on the live session, please DM. I'll be happy to answer your question directly on WhatsApp or email, whichever way. We can even schedule Zoom calls for you if necessary, and we'll get those answered. If you miss this session, it's going to be posted for you to rewatch and share. Subscribe to all our channels. Make sure you share them with your friends and family, only the ones you like. And I look forward to seeing you all again next Thursday at 7 p.m. Be blessed, guys. Bye. Hapa nilikuja
nakuja bila kitu, na sitoki bila kitu. Mwanangu azaliwe na kakitu, usitoke bila kitu. Aye, kila siku naishi kama sina kitu, mwishowe miliwe na kakitu, akisitoke bila kitu. I wanna make a home with you, I'm putting all my hope in you. And I could be anywhere in the world, but home is where I'm with you. I wanna build a